The mansion's marble floor is cold beneath Daphne's knees as she presses two fingers against Beatrice Giovanni's neck, searching for a pulse. The elderly woman's lips are turning blue, and somewhere behind her, Adrian Valentino's voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. What the hell are you doing? Get away from her. Daphne doesn't move. Can't move because she knows with the certainty of someone who's seen this exact scenario play out in an ER at 3 o'clock in the morning that if she stops now, if she listens to the panic in Adrian's voice or the shouting of his guards, Beatrice Giovanni will die. She's not breathing, Daphne says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. And if you don't shut up and let me work, you're going to lose her. Adrian's shadow falls over them both, dark and threatening. You have 10 seconds to explain why I shouldn't put a bullet in your head for touching my mother. Daphne's hands are already on Beatrice's chest, counting this house who knows how to save her life. The clock on the wall ticks. Beatrice's chest rises and falls under Daphne's hands. And Adrian Valentino, the man who terrifies an entire city, stands frozen watching a 27-year-old nanny do the impossible. What secret is Daphne hiding? How did she really learn to save lives? Keep watching to find out. Daphne Jones had learned early in life that rich people's houses all smelled the same, like money and secrets wrapped in expensive candles that cost more than her monthly rent. The Valentino estate was no different. She sat in the marble-floored foyer, her resume clutched in hands that wouldn't stop sweating, and tried not to think about the 3 overdue bills sitting on her kitchen counter, the nursing school debt that had buried her dreams. The eviction notice she'd hidden under her mattress like a shameful secret. Miss Jones, the woman who appeared, was elegant in a way that made Daphne instantly aware of every thread on her second-hand blazer. Silver hair pulled into a perfect ponytail, eyes that assessed and calculated in a single glance. "I'm Beatrice Giovanni," the woman said, extending a hand weighted with rings that could probably pay off Daphne's student loans twice over. "Thank you for coming." Daphne stood, smoothing her skirt. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Giovanni. Please sit." Beatrice settled into a chair that looked like it belonged in a museum. "I'll be direct, Miss Jones. My grandson needs help I can't provide. He's 6 years old. Brilliant. Difficult. And he's been through 4 nannies in 6 months. May I ask why?" Beatrice's smile was thin. "Because his father terrifies them." The words hung in the air like smoke. Daphne should have stood up right then. Should have made an excuse and walked out of this marble mausoleum with its crystal chandeliers and the faint scent of danger that clung to everything. Instead, she thought about the eviction notice, about the nursing degree she'd never finished because life had other plans, about the little boy who apparently scared away grown women. If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. "I don't scare easily," Daphne heard herself say.
No.
Beatrice leaned forward. "And why is that?" "Because I've held dying patients in my arms. Because I've worked double shifts in ERS where gang members and cops sat in the same waiting room. Because I've been scared my whole life, and I'm tired of running from it. Because I've worked with difficult children before," Daphne said instead. "And I believe every child deserves someone who won't give up on them." Beatrice studied her for a long moment. Daphne felt the weight of that gaze taking in her dark skin. Her natural hair pulled into a professional bun. The determination in her spine despite the cheap suit. "You're not what I expected," Beatrice said finally. "Is that a problem?" On the contrary, Beatrice stood.
Come meet Dante.
They walked through hallways that could swallow Daphne's entire apartment, past artwork that belonged in galleries, through doors that whispered open on hinges that probably cost more than her car. The boy was in a sunroom overlooking gardens that stretched toward infinity, dark curls, serious eyes. He was building something with blocks, not a tower, but an elaborate structure with precise angles and careful symmetry. "Dante," Beatrice said softly, "this is Miss Jones." The boy looked up. His eyes were the color of storm clouds. And Daphne felt something twist in her chest. She'd seen that look before in pediatric wards on children who'd learned too young that the world was not safe.
Then
Daphne crouched down, careful not to invade his space. That's an impressive building. Are you an architect? It's a fortress, Dante said. His voice was small but firm. Nothing can get in. Smart, Daphne replied. Everyone needs a safe place. Something flickered in those storm gray eyes. Do you have one? The question caught her off guard. I'm working on it. Me, too. They stayed like that for a moment. Daphne crouched on expensive carpet, Dante surrounded by his careful walls. An understanding passed between them, silent and profound. Miss Jones, Beatrice said quietly. Would you step outside for a moment in the hallway? Beatrice turned to her. You're hired.
Just like that. Just like that.
Beatrice's expression softened. My grandson hasn't spoken to a stranger in 3 months. You gave him something no one else has. What's that? The truth. Beatrice pulled an envelope from her pocket. This is your first month's salary. You start Monday, 7 a.m. Daphne looked at the envelope. Thick, heavy. She didn't need to open it to know it was more money than she'd ever held at once. Mrs. Giovanni, there's something you should know. Beatrice's voice dropped. My son, Dante's father, he's not an easy man. He has a dangerous business and a dangerous reputation. The last nanny quit because he looked at her wrong. And you're still offering me this job? Because you're the first person I've met who might actually be strong enough to handle it. Beatrice's eyes held hers. But I need you to understand, once you walk through these doors Monday morning, you're part of this family. And this family doesn't let people go easily. It should have been a warning. Should have sent Daphne running. Instead, she thought about Dante's fortress, about safe places, about the way her own life had been nothing but running and hiding and barely surviving. I'll see you Monday, Daphne said. She was halfway to her car when she heard the rumble of engines. 3 black SUVs swept up the circular driveway like sharks cutting through water. The middle vehicle stopped and a man emerged. Daphne froze. Adrian Valentino was not handsome in any conventional sense. He was dark and sharp and dangerous, all angles and intensity, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her car. His hair was dark, touched with silver at the temples. His face was carved from stone and shadows. Their eyes met across the driveway. For a moment, just a heartbeat. Something passed between them. Recognition, though they'd never met, a spark of something that felt like destiny or doom, and Daphne couldn't tell which. Then Adrian's gaze swept over her, dismissive and cold, and he turned toward the house without a word. Daphne's hands were shaking as she unlocked her car. She'd just signed up to work for a man who looked at people like they were chess pieces. She'd just agreed to walk into danger every single day. And she had absolutely no idea what she'd gotten herself into. Adrian Valentino doesn't know it yet, but Daphne Jones is about to change everything. Will their first real meeting end in disaster?
Keep watching.
Daphne's first week at the Valentino estate passed in a strange kind of peaceful tension. Dante warmed to her slowly, like ice melting under careful sun. They built fortresses together, read books, walked through gardens where armed men in suits watched from a distance. She learned his rhythms, the way he needed silence in the mornings, how he liked his sandwiches cut diagonally, that he was brilliant with numbers but struggled with eye contact. She learned the house, too, which hallways led to Adrian's office, always off limits, where Beatrice took her afternoon tea. The name of every guard, housekeeper, chef. What she didn't learn was how to stop thinking about the man who owned all of this. Adrian was a ghost. She heard his voice through walls, saw his car coming and going at odd hours, found evidence of him everywhere. A coffee cup still warm on a kitchen counter, the lingering scent of expensive cologne in hallways, Dante's sudden stillness when his father's footsteps approached. But they never crossed paths. Not until Friday afternoon, when Daphne's carefully built world collided with his. She was in the kitchen with Dante, teaching him to make chocolate chip cookies. Flour dusted his dark curls. His small hands carefully measured ingredients. He was actually smiling. Miss Daphne, he said, pouring chocolate chips with intense concentration. Do you think my dad will like these? Her heart squeezed. I think he'll love them. He doesn't eat cookies. Everyone eats cookies, Dante. Not my dad. He doesn't? What the hell is this? The voice cut through the kitchen like a blade. Daphne spun around, her hand instinctively moving to shield Dante. Adrian Valentino stood in the doorway, filling it with darkness and barely contained fury. His suit was pristine despite the late hour.
His eyes, God.
His eyes were even more intense up close, swept over the flour-dusted kitchen with something that looked like rage. Mr. Valentino, Daphne said, keeping her voice level. We're baking. I can see what you're doing. He moved into the kitchen like a predator. What I want to know is why my son is covered in flour and making a mess in my house. Because he's 6 years old, Daphne replied. And 6-year-olds bake cookies. Adrian's jaw tightened. Behind her, she felt Dante pressing against her back, small and scared. Dante, Adrian said, his voice dropping. Go upstairs. But Dad, now. Dante fled. Daphne heard his small feet on the marble stairs, and something in her chest went cold and hard. That, she said quietly, was cruel. Adrian's eyes snapped to her face. Excuse me, he was trying to make cookies for you. He was smiling, and you scared him away like he'd done something wrong. You've been here 1 week. Long enough to see that you have a terrified 6-year-old who flinches when you walk into a room. Daphne crossed her arms. Long enough to know that whatever dangerous business you run outside these walls doesn't give you the right to terrorize a child inside them. The silence that followed was deadly. Adrian moved closer. Daphne held her ground, even though her heart was hammering. Up close, she could see the silver threading through his dark hair, the faint scar along his jaw, the barely controlled violence in every line of his body. You know nothing about my life, he said, his voice soft and lethal. Nothing about what I do to keep this family safe. Nothing about the dangers that I know you're breaking that little boy's heart, Daphne interrupted. And I know that all the power and money in the world won't fix that. Adrian stared at her. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or pain so deeply buried, it rarely saw light. Then his expression hardened. Clean this up and don't presume to tell me how to parent my son again. He turned to leave. Daphne should have let him go. Should have kept her mouth shut and her job secure. He asked me if you'd like the cookies, she said to his retreating back. First thing he said, do you think my dad will like these? That's all he wants, Mr. Valentino. For you to like something he made. Adrian stopped, didn't turn around. His shoulders were rigid beneath expensive fabric. I don't eat cookies, he said finally. Then learn. He left without another word. Daphne stood in the flour-dusted kitchen, her hands shaking with adrenaline and something else, anger at his coldness. Yes, but also a strange, unwanted understanding because she'd seen his eyes. And in them, just for a second, she'd seen something familiar. Fear, not of her, not of anything external, but the bone-deep terror of someone who loved something so much they'd rather push it away than risk losing it. That night, after Dante was asleep, Daphne found Beatrice in the library. I may have just gotten myself fired, Daphne said. Beatrice looked up from her book. You confronted Adrian about Dante. How did you? The staff talks, and my son has been brooding in his office for 3 hours. Beatrice smiled. Sit down, Daphne. Daphne sank into a chair. I shouldn't have said those things.
Why not?
They were true. Because he's my employer. Because I need this job. Because you're afraid. Beatrice's eyes were kind. Or because you're starting to understand him. Daphne looked away. I don't understand him at all. Don't you? Beatrice set down her book. Adrian lost his wife when Dante was born. Complications during delivery. He held her hand while she died and held his newborn son in the same moment. Do you know what that does to a man? Daphne's throat tightened. No. It teaches him that love and death are the same thing, that anything he cares about can be taken away in a heartbeat. Beatrice's voice was soft, so he keeps his distance. Keeps everyone at arm's length, especially Dante.
That's not fair to Dante.
No, but Adrian's not trying to be fair. He's trying to survive. Beatrice leaned forward. You challenged him today. Called him out. Do you know how rare that is? He looked ready to fire me. He looked ready to listen. Beatrice smiled. You're not fired, Daphne, but you should know. You just made yourself interesting to a very dangerous man. Later, in her small room in the staff wing, Daphne couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Adrian's eyes. The pain buried so deep it had turned to ice. She understood more than Beatrice knew. Had her own scars from loss and failure, her own walls built high. But walls she'd learned were prisons as much as they were protection. Around 2 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. Quiet, careful. She cracked open her door and saw Adrian standing outside Dante's room, his hand on the door frame, his shoulders bent with something that looked like grief. He stood there for a long moment, never went inside, never reached for the door handle, just stood in the darkness, loving his son from a distance that was slowly killing them both. Daphne closed her door, pressed her back against it, and knew with terrible certainty that she was in more danger than she'd ever imagined, because she wasn't just working for Adrian Valentino anymore. She was starting to care. Daphne just saw the truth behind Adrian's walls. But caring for a man like him is dangerous. What happens when Beatrice's health takes a deadly turn?
Keep watching.
It happened on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Daphne had started working for the Valentinos. She was in the garden with Dante, teaching him about different flowers. Beatrice had joined them, elegant in a pale blue dress, offering commentary on the roses she'd planted decades ago. My husband brought these from Italy, Beatrice was saying, touching a white bloom with careful fingers. He said they reminded him of. She stopped mid-sentence. Her hand went to her chest. Beatrice. Daphne stood up. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Just Beatrice's face had gone pale.
Dizzy.
I think I need to sit. She collapsed before Daphne could reach her. Everything after that happened in seconds and centuries simultaneously. Daphne was moving on instinct. Years of ER training, of trauma responses, of muscle memories she'd thought she'd left behind with her abandoned nursing degree. Dante, run inside and get your father now. The boy froze, eyes wide with terror.
Dante.
Daphne's voice cracked like a whip.
Go.
He ran. Daphne dropped to her knees beside Beatrice, fingers finding the pulse point on her neck. Weak, thready. Beatrice's lips were turning blue. Classic sign of cardiac distress, possibly a heart attack. Her mind supplied with clinical detachment even as her hands shook. Stay with me, Daphne murmured, tilting Beatrice's head back, checking her airway. Come on, Beatrice. Stay with me. Beatrice's chest stopped moving.
No pulse.
Daphne's hands moved automatically, positioning Beatrice flat on the garden path, interlocking her fingers, finding the correct placement on the sternum. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The rhythm she'd performed hundreds of times in controlled hospital settings, never in a garden with roses watching. 1, 2, 3, she heard shouting, running footsteps, didn't look up. 28, 29, 30, tilt the head, seal the mouth, 2 breaths. What the hell are you doing? Get away from her. Adrian's voice roared with panic. Hands grabbed her shoulders. Don't touch me. Daphne shrugged him off, starting compressions again. She's not breathing.
No pulse.
I'm doing CPR. You're a nanny. I'm a trauma nurse. The words ripped out of her. Or I was before I dropped out. Now shut up and call 911. Silence. Then Adrian was on his phone, his voice sharp and commanding, demanding an ambulance, demanding the best cardiac team, demanding everything. Daphne kept counting, kept pushing. Her arms were screaming, but she couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Come on, Beatrice.
Breathe.
Breathe for Dante. Breathe for Adrian. Come on, Beatrice gasped. Her chest heaved. Eyes fluttered open, confused and terrified. Don't move, Daphne said, gentling her voice. You collapsed. Ambulance is coming. Just breathe slow and steady. Dante is safe. Adrian's here. Daphne looked up, found Adrian's eyes. The fear in them was naked, devastating. She's stabilized, but she needs a hospital. Where's the ambulance? 3 minutes out. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. What happened? Looks like cardiac event, possible heart attack. She needs immediate medical attention. Daphne kept her fingers on Beatrice's pulse, monitoring. Has she had heart problems before? She never said, Adrian. Beatrice's voice was weak.
Cabinet, bathroom, pile.
Adrian's face went white. He disappeared into the house, returned seconds later with a prescription bottle. Daphne read the label and felt her stomach drop. Beta blockers for heart arrhythmia.
How long?
She asked Beatrice. 6 months. Beatrice managed a weak smile. Didn't want to worry anyone. You could have died, Adrian said, and the anguish in his voice could have shattered stone. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics swarmed the garden. Daphne briefed them with clinical precision. Timeline, symptoms, interventions performed, medications found. They looked at her with respect and confusion, clearly wondering how a nanny knew protocol this well. Adrian rode with Beatrice, but before he climbed into the ambulance, he turned to Daphne. You saved her, he said. It wasn't a question. I did what anyone trained would do. You lied on your resume. I didn't lie. I just didn't mention. Daphne took a breath. I dropped out of nursing school 6 months before graduating. Couldn't afford to finish, so technically, I'm not a nurse. Adrian stared at her, really looked at her, past the nanny uniform, past the defenses, seeing something deeper. Take care of Dante, he said finally. I'll call when I know more, he left. Daphne stood in the garden, hands still shaking with adrenaline, and found Dante hiding behind a rose bush, tears streaming down his face. Is Nona going to die? He whispered. Daphne crouched down, pulled him close.
No, baby.
Not today. Not if I can help it. You saved her. I tried. My mom died. Dante said into her shoulder. Dad said she just stopped breathing like Nona, but nobody saved her. Daphne's heart cracked clean through. She held Dante tighter. Understanding now, understanding everything. Adrian's distance, his fear, his inability to get close to the son who reminded him of the wife he'd lost. Your dad's scared, she told Dante. Scared of losing people he loves. But that doesn't mean he doesn't love you.
It means he loves you so much it terrifies him.
Do you think he'll come back? Always, Daphne promised. Your dad will always come back for you. She hoped to God she wasn't lying. That night, after Dante finally fell asleep, Daphne sat in the dark kitchen and let herself shake. Let herself feel the terror of those moments when Beatrice's heart had stopped. The weight of being responsible for someone's life. She'd run from this, run from medicine, from the pressure, from the debt and the exhaustion, and the constant grinding fear of not being enough. But today, when it mattered, her training had kicked in. Her hands had known what to do, and she'd saved a life. At midnight, Adrian came home. Daphne heard his car in the driveway, his footsteps in the hall. She should have gone to bed, should have stayed invisible. Instead, she stood up when he entered the kitchen. He looked wrecked, suit rumpled, faced, eyes haunted. She's stable, he said without preamble. Needs surgery, pacemaker, but she'll survive. Good, because of you. Adrian moved closer. They said, another minute without oxygen and she would have had permanent brain damage. Another 3 minutes and she'd be dead. I did what anyone don't. His voice was sharp. Don't diminish what you did. You saved my mother's life. I'm sorry I lied about. Why did you quit? Adrian asked. 6 months from graduating. You were that close to being a nurse. Why did you stop? Daphne looked away. My mom got sick. Cancer. I took time off to care for her. She died 3 months later. By then, I'd missed too much school, run out of money, drowned in debt. So I quit. You gave up your dream. I chose my mother. Daphne met his eyes. I'd do it again. Something in Adrian's expression shifted, softened in a way she hadn't thought possible. Dante told me what you said, he murmured, about me being scared. I shouldn't have. You were right. The admissions seemed to cost him. I am terrified every day that something will happen to him, that I'll lose him like I lost Iris. So I keep my distance because if I don't love him too much, maybe it won't destroy me. When his voice broke. But you do love him, Daphne said softly. Too much. And the distance isn't protecting either of you. It's just making you both lonely. Adrian closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. I don't know how to be close to him, he whispered without being terrified. You learn, Daphne said. One moment at a time. One cookie at a time. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I suppose I should learn to eat cookies. It would be a start. They stood in the dark kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of ordinary life. Dishes in the sink, Dante's drawings on the fridge, evidence of the simple, dangerous act of being a family. Thank you, Adrian said finally, for saving her, for understanding, for not running when I gave you every reason to. I'm still here, Daphne replied.
Why?
Because Dante needs me. Because Beatrice needs me. Because you need me, even if you don't know it yet. Because everyone deserves someone who won't give up on them, Daphne said. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and she felt the weight of that gaze like a physical touch, seeing her. Not the nanny, not the employee, but the woman who'd held his mother's life in her hands and refused to let go. I'm dangerous, Daphne, he said quietly, being close to me. I'll take my chances. The words hung between them. A promise, a challenge, the beginning of something that would change everything. Adrian reached out, his hand hovering near her face, then dropped it like he'd remembered himself.
Get some sleep, he said.
Tomorrow, I need to ask you something.
What?
How much would it take to get you to finish nursing school? Daphne's breath caught.
What?
You have a gift, Adrian said simply. And I have more money than God. So I'll pay for school, pay your rent, pay everything in return. In return, stay, he said with Dante, with my mother, with he trailed off. Just stay. Mr. Valentino. Adrian, he corrected. If you're going to save my family's lives, you should probably use my name. Adrian. She tried and his eyes darkened. I can't accept. You can and you will. He moved toward the door.
Think about it.
But Daphne, yes. I never forget her dad, and I always protect what's mine. He left her standing in the kitchen, heart racing, mind spinning, wondering when exactly she'd stopped being the nanny and become part of something far more dangerous, something that felt terrifyingly like family. Adrian just offered Daphne everything she's ever wanted. But accepting means binding herself to a man whose world is built on danger. What will she choose? And what enemy is watching from the shadows? Keep watching. Beatrice came home 3 days later with a fresh scar and a pacemaker, keeping rhythm with her stubborn heart. The house transformed. Nurses scheduled, medications organized, a hospital bed set up in the downstairs guest room because Beatrice refused to be banished to the upper floors like an invalid. Through it all, Daphne moved like the trained medical professional. She almost was monitoring Valentino's, adjusting pillows, charting recovery with the precision of someone who'd never really left medicine behind. And through it all, Adrian watched her, not with suspicion anymore, with something else. Something that made Daphne's skin feel too tight and her heart beat too fast. You're staring again, Beatrice said one afternoon, her voice weak, but amused. Adrian didn't look away from where Daphne sat in the garden with Dante. I'm not staring. You're burning holes through the window, Figlio. It's the same thing. She's good with him. She's good with all of us. Beatrice smiled. Have you asked her yet about school? She keeps avoiding the conversation. Maybe because she's scared of what? I'm offering to pay for everything. That's why she's scared. Beatrice reached for his hand. Women like Daphne, proud, strong, independent. They don't accept charity. And they definitely don't accept help from men who look at them the way you look at her. Adrian's jaw tightened. I don't, Adrian. I'm your mother. I know you're interested in a woman, and I haven't seen you look at anyone like this since Iris. The name landed between them like a grenade. Adrian pulled his hand away.
Don't, he said.
Don't what? Don't notice that you're finally letting someone in. Don't be happy that she works for me. She's Dante's nanny, that's all.
Is it?
Beatrice's eyes were sharp despite her weakened state. Because I think she's become much more than that to all of us. Adrian left without answering, but his mother's words followed him through the house, settling into his chest like stones. He found Daphne in the kitchen that evening, preparing Beatrice's medications with the same careful precision she brought to everything.
We need to talk, he said.
Daphne didn't look up about school, my offer, the fact that you've been avoiding me for 3 days. I've been busy taking care of your mother, Daphne. She sat down the pill organizer with deliberate care. I can't accept your offer. Why not? Because she finally looked at him, and the conflict in her dark eyes made his chest tight. Because I don't know what you're really asking for. Adrian moved closer. I'm asking you to finish what you started. To become the nurse you were meant to be while working for you.
Yes.
Taking care of Dante and Beatrice.
Yes.
Living in your house. Being part of your family. She crossed her arms. What happens when I finish school, Adrian? What happens when I'm a real nurse and you don't need me anymore? The question caught him off guard. I'll always need.
He stopped.
You'd still have a place here. As what? The overqualified nanny, the family nurse. Her voice was steady, but he heard the hurt underneath. I need to know what I'm agreeing to because once I say yes, once I let you pay for my education and tie my future to this family, I can't take it back. And I need to know it's not just about Dante or Beatrice. What do you want it to be about? That's not an answer. Adrian looked at her. This woman who burst into his carefully controlled world and upended everything. Who'd saved his mother. Who'd called him out on his cowardice. Who'd made him feel things he'd sworn never to feel again. I can't promise you anything, he said finally. I can't promise I'll be what you need, that I won't hurt you, or push you away, or underscore this up like I underscore up everything I touch. But I can promise that you'll have every resource I have, every protection, and that as long as you're part of this family, nothing will harm you. That's not what I asked for.
I know.
He moved closer, near enough to see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. But it's all I have. Daphne studied him for a long moment. You're asking me to take a leap of faith. I suppose I am. Into a life I don't fully understand with a man who won't tell me what he really wants.
Yes.
And if I say yes, there's no going back. No, Adrian agreed. There isn't. She should say no, should pack her bags and walk away from this beautiful, dangerous trap, should choose safety over the terrifying pull she felt toward this broken man and his broken family. Instead, she thought about Dante's smile, Beatrice's grateful eyes, the way Adrian had looked when he'd thought his mother was dying, like his whole world was ending. She thought about the nursing degree she'd abandoned, the dreams she'd buried, the person she'd been before loss had taught her to play it safe. I have conditions, she said. Adrian's eyes sharpened.
Name them.
I maintain my independence. I'm not owned, not controlled. I make my own choices. Agreed. I work because I want to, not because I'm obligated. Agreed. And if this, whatever this is between us, if it gets complicated, we talk about it honestly. No running, no hiding, no shutting each other out. Adrian's expression darkened. Daphne, those are my terms. Take them or leave them. He stared at her, and then slowly something like respect crossed his face. You don't negotiate like a nanny. That's because I'm not one. Not really. Not anymore. She held out her hand. Do we have a deal? Adrian looked at her hand, at her face, at the future she was offering, terrifying and uncertain, and nothing like the safe distance he'd maintained for 6 years.
He took her hand.
We have a deal. Their palms pressed together, warm and electric. Neither of them pulled away. There's something else, Adrian said quietly. Something you should know before you agree to this.
What?
The world I live in, it's dangerous. Not just my mother's health or Dante's well-being. The business I run, the people I deal with, they're not good people, and being close to me puts a target on your back. I know what you do, Adrian.
Do you?
His hand tightened on hers. Do you know that men have died because I ordered it? That I've made deals with people who'd kill you without blinking? That every day I wake up knowing someone might try to hurt Dante to get to me? Yes, Daphne said simply. I've known since the day I walked through these doors, and I'm still here.
Why?
Because I see the man underneath the monster. Because Dante needs someone to show him that love doesn't have to hurt. Because I've been half alive for 2 years, and I'm tired of being scared. Because sometimes, Daphne said carefully, the most dangerous thing we can do is play it safe. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. Then he smiled. A real smile, rare and devastating. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. They stood in the kitchen, hands still clasped, the air between them charged with possibility and peril. When do I start? Daphne asked. School, I mean. Next semester. I'll have my people handle enrollment, tuition, books, everything. I'll pay you back. No, his voice was firm. Consider it an investment in Dante's future. In my mother's care. He paused. In us. The word hung between them like a promise and a threat.
Okay.
Daphne breathed. Okay. Okay. Adrian released her hand slowly, like he was reluctant to let go. There's one more thing.
What?
I'm having a security team assigned to you starting tomorrow. Adrian. Non-negotiable. He said, you're part of this family now. That means you're protected. End of discussion. Daphne wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Fierce and possessive and absolutely unyielding. Fine, she said, but they stay out of my way. They're professionals. You won't even know they're there. I doubt that. Adrian moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Daphne, yes. Thank you for saying yes, for staying. For he seemed to struggle with words, for not giving up on us. Before she could respond, he left. Daphne sagged against the counter, her heart racing. She'd just agreed to something momentous and terrifying, had just bound herself to a family that lived in shadows and danger, had just admitted, at least to herself, killed as she cared about Adrian Valentino in ways that had nothing to do with employment. Well? Beatrice's voice came from the doorway, making Daphne jump. That was interesting. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. Beatrice moved slowly into the kitchen, leaning on her cane. He's falling for you, you know.
He's not.
He is. And you're falling for him. Beatrice smiled. I approve for what it's worth. Nothing's happening between us yet. Beatrice corrected.
But it will.
That man hasn't looked at a woman in 6 years. Then you walk in, save my life, call him on his __, and make his son smile for the first time since his mother died. You've already changed everything, Kara. The question is what you'll do about it. Focus on school, Daphne said firmly.
Take care of Dante.
Help you recover. And Adrian? Adrian can take care of himself. Beatrice laughed softly. That's what he thinks, too. But the truth is, you're both wrong. You need each other. And the sooner you admit it, the less painful this will be. That night, Daphne couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had changed.
Tomorrow, she'd have bodyguards.
Next month, she'd be back in school. 6 months from now, she'd have her nursing degree. And somewhere in all of that, she'd fallen into a life that was nothing like the safe, small existence she'd been living. She'd fallen for a little boy who needed her, a woman who reminded her of her own mother, and a dangerous man who looked at her like she was both his salvation and his doom. Around 3 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. Got up, cracked her door, and saw Adrian standing outside Dante's room again, but this time he went inside. Daphne heard soft murmuring. Dante's sleepy voice saying, "Dad." Adrian's rough reply. Then silence. When Adrian emerged 15 minutes later, he looked lighter somehow, like he'd set down a burden he'd been carrying for years. His eyes found hers in the darkness. Neither of them spoke, but something passed between them. Understanding, acknowledgement, the beginning of something that felt inevitable. Then Adrian nodded once and walked away. And Daphne closed her door, her heart full of something dangerous and terrifying and achingly like hope. Daphne and Adrian have made their choice. But in the shadows, an enemy is watching. Someone who knows their growing connection is a weakness that can be exploited. Will their newfound family survive what's coming? Keep watching for the stunning conclusion. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks later in the form of a photograph. Adrian found it on his office desk. No envelope, no note, just a single glossy image of Daphne walking Dante to the park. Her security detail visible in the background. Someone had been close enough to take this picture, close enough to hurt them. Adrian's blood turned to ice. Within an hour, the security team had been doubled. The house went into lockdown. Daphne found herself face to face with an Adrian Valentino she'd never seen before. Cold, deadly, radiating controlled violence. "You don't leave the estate without me," he said. No negotiation in his voice. Pure command. "Adrian, not negotiable. There's a threat. Someone's watching you. Until I neutralize it, you stay where I can protect you." "Who would want to hurt me?" "Anyone who wants to hurt me." His eyes were black with fury. "You and Dante, you're my weakness now, and people know it." The words landed like stones. Weakness, not family, not love. Tactical vulnerability. "So that's what we are?" Daphne asked quietly. "Weaknesses to be protected?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "That's not what I meant, isn't it?" She crossed her arms. "You've spent 6 years keeping everyone at a distance to avoid being vulnerable. And now that you're finally letting people in, you realize it means being afraid. So you lock us up and call it protection. Someone is threatening my family. We are not soldiers in your war, Adrian. We are people who care about you, and you're pushing us away by treating us like liabilities." The silence that followed was explosive. "I'm trying to keep you safe," Adrian said, his voice low and dangerous. "No, you're trying to keep yourself safe from losing control, from being human." Daphne moved closer. "But you can't protect us by locking us away. That's not safety. That's prison. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Her voice gentled. "You're scared. I get it. But Dante needs to go to the park. Beatrice needs to see her friends. I need to go to school. We need to live, Adrian, not just survive." Adrian looked at her. This woman who refused to be cowed, who called him out even when he was at his most dangerous. "Someone put your picture on my desk," he said quietly. "Do you know what that means?" "It means they can get to you." To Dante, it means you have enemies." "I know." Daphne touched his arm. "But you've had enemies for years, and you've survived. We'll survive, too, together." Iris didn't survive. The name fell between them like a bomb. Adrian's face went white. "Complications during delivery are not the same as being targeted by your enemies," Daphne said softly. "And I'm not Iris." "No, you're not." Adrian's voice was raw. "You're alive, and I need you to stay that way. Then work with me, not against me.
Tell me what's happening.
Let me make informed choices instead of being locked in a gilded cage." Adrian closed his eyes. "There's a rival family, the Costas. They've been trying to move into my territory for months. This is their message that they can reach what I care about.
What do they want?"
Me dead or destroyed. They don't care which. Then we deal with them together." "Daphne," I said together. She squeezed his arm.
"You're not alone anymore, Adrian."
"And the sooner you accept that, the stronger we all are." For a long moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then he pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with desperate intensity. "I can't lose you," he whispered into her hair. "I can't lose any of you. It would destroy me. Then don't push us away trying to prevent it." They stood like that for a long time. Daphne wrapped in the arms of a dangerous man who'd finally admitted he was terrified. Adrian holding the woman who'd somehow become essential to his survival. When they pulled apart, Adrian's expression had shifted. Still serious, but no longer closed off. "Enhanced security," he said. "But you can still go to school. Dante can still go to the park. I'll assign Aurelio to you personally. He's the best."
"Thank you."
And Daphne. Adrian cupped her face. "If anything happens, if you sense any danger at all, you run. You don't try to be brave. I don't try to protect anyone. You just run and let my people handle it." Adrian promised me. She looked into his eyes and saw real fear there. The kind that came from loss so profound it had shaped his entire existence.
"I promise," she said.
Adrian nodded. Then he did something unexpected. He kissed her forehead. Soft, brief, devastating. "Be safe," he murmured. Then he was gone, off to deal with threats and enemies, leaving Daphne standing in his office with her heart racing and her skin still warm from his touch. The next week was surreal. Daphne attended classes with a shadow. Aurelio, 6 feet of professional menace, who somehow managed to blend into university hallways. Dante went to the park with a security detail that pretended to be random passers-by. Beatrice had tea with friends while armed men watched from cars. They lived, but the fear was always there, lurking at the edges. Then, on a Friday night, everything exploded. Daphne was in the library helping Dante with homework when Adrian burst through the door, his face a mask of cold fury.
Pack a bag, he said.
We're leaving now. What's happening? The Costas made a move, threatened Dante's school. We're going to the safe house until it's handled. Dante looked up, eyes wide with fear.
Dad.
Adrian crouched down. It's okay, buddy. We're just taking a little trip, like an adventure. Are bad men coming? Adrian's expression cracked. I won't let anyone hurt you. I promise. 20 minutes later, they were in an SUV convoy, racing through the night. Daphne held Dante close while Beatrice sat rigid beside them. Adrian was in the front seat, phone pressed to his ear, issuing orders in a voice that could cut glass. The safe house was actually a fortress. High walls, armed guards, technology that looked military grade. They were shepherded inside, like precious cargo.
How long?
Daphne asked Adrian when Dante and Beatrice had been settled in bedrooms. A few days, maybe a week. My people are handling it. Handling it how? Adrian's eyes were dark. You don't want to know? I do. Actually, if I'm part of this family, I need to know what that means. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. The Costas crossed a line, threatened a child. In our world, that's unforgivable. His voice was flat. So, I'm making sure they understand what happens when you threaten what's mine. You're going to kill them. Some of them.
Yes.
Daphne should have been horrified. Should have recoiled from the casual way he said it. Instead, she thought about Dante's terrified face, about Beatrice's fragile health, about the photograph on Adrian's desk. Good, she said. Adrian's eyes widened. Daphne, I'm not naive, Adrian. I know what you are. What you do, she moved closer. And I know that in your world, showing mercy is seen as weakness. So do what you need to do. Protect this family and come back to us alive. You're not horrified? I'm terrified, she admitted. But not of you. Of losing you. Of something happening to Dante or Beatrice. Of this beautiful broken family being destroyed by people who don't care who they hurt. Adrian pulled her close. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm practical. You're perfect. He kissed her. Then not her forehead, not a friendly gesture, but a real kiss, desperate and fierce and full of everything they'd both been denying. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Don't die, Daphne whispered. I won't. Promise me. I promise. Adrian rested his forehead against hers. Because I have something to come back to now. Someone to come back to. He left an hour later, taking most of the security team with him. Daphne spent the night alternating between checking on Dante and Beatrice and staring at her phone, waiting for word. It came at dawn. Adrian's text was brief. It's done. Coming home. 3 hours later, he walked through the door, exhausted, bruised, but alive. Dante launched himself into Adrian's arms. Beatrice cried, and Daphne stood back watching this family she'd somehow become part of knit itself back together. Later, when Dante was asleep and Beatrice was resting, Adrian found Daphne on the terrace. Thank you, he said. For what? For not running. For not being scared of what I am. I am scared, Daphne corrected, but not enough to leave. Adrian pulled her into his arms. I love you, he said. Raw, honest, terrifying. I didn't want to, tried not to, but I do, and I can't take it back. Daphne's heart stopped, started again, raced. I love you, too, she whispered. Even though you're dangerous and controlling and absolutely impossible. So we're doing this. I think we already are. They kissed again, slower this time. A promise, a beginning. I'm still going to drive you crazy, Adrian warned. I'm counting on it, and I'm probably going to screw this up. Definitely, but I'll try for you, for Dante, for us. That's all I ask. They stood wrapped together as dawn broke over the estate, this unlikely family forged in danger and loss, and the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. And for the first time in 6 years, Adrian Valentino allowed himself to hope. Daphne Jones Valentino, she'd kept her name, but added his, a compromise they'd reached after one of their spectacularly heated arguments, stood in the kitchen of the Valentino estate, wearing scrubs and her brand new nursing degree. She'd graduated top of her class. Adrian had been there front row with Dante and Beatrice. He'd tried to hide his tears. He'd failed. Now she worked 3 days a week at a trauma center. The rest of her time devoted to Dante and Beatrice. The perfect balance between the career she'd always wanted and the family she'd never expected. Miss Daphne, Dante burst into the kitchen, no longer the scared 6-year-old she'd met a year ago. Now he was 7, confident, and currently covered in paint. Dad said to tell you dinner's in 10 minutes. Your dad is cooking. Nona's helping. God help us all. Dante giggled and ran off. Daphne smiled, finishing the cookies she was making. Chocolate chip, Adrian's favorite, though he still pretended not to have a favorite, arms wrapped around her waist from behind, lips pressed to her neck. Mrs. Valentino, Adrian murmured. Not yet, she corrected. They were engaged, but in no rush. And stop calling me that. Make me. She turned in his arms. He was wearing an apron, actual apron, and had flour in his hair. The most feared man in the city, reduced to domestic chaos. I love you, she said. I love you more. Impossible. Prove it. They kissed slow and sweet until Dante made gagging noises from the doorway.
Gross.
Dad, stop kissing Daphne. Never, Adrian said, but he pulled back. Go tell Nona. I'll be there in a minute. When they were alone again, Adrian grew serious. I have something to tell you. What? The Costas, what's left of them, sued for peace officially. It's over. Daphne sagged with relief. Really? Really? No more threats. No more war. We're safe. All of us. All of us. Adrian kissed her forehead. You saved my family, Daphne, in every way that matters. And I spend every day grateful you walked through our door. Even when I argue with you, especially then. They went to dinner, chaotic and loud, Beatrice telling stories. Dante laughing, Adrian's hand finding Daphne's under the table. A family, imperfect and dangerous, and absolutely real. Later, when Dante was asleep and Beatrice had retired, Daphne and Adrian sat in the garden where it had all begun. Do you ever regret it? Adrian asked. Staying, choosing this life. Never, Daphne said. And she meant it. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is open your heart. And sometimes it's the only thing worth doing, the end. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video as your support is important for me to continue creating content.